When I was 17, my parents locked me out on the coldest night of the year because my brother lied. 10 years later, I stood on stage in front of thousands and watched their faces turn white when they realized who I'd become. This is my story. My name is Nora, and for most of my childhood, I was the problem child. Not because I caused actual trouble. I didn't steal, didn't skip school, didn't hang out with the wrong crowd. My crime was simpler. I asked questions. I didn't stay quiet when things felt wrong. My brother Liam was 2 years younger, and he was the golden child. Perfect smile, perfect grades on report card day, perfect at crying on command. When something broke in our house, somehow it was always my fault. When money disappeared, I took it. When Liam failed a test, it was because I distracted him or made the house stressful. I lived in a small town where everyone knew everyone's business. My father worked as an accountant for local businesses. People trusted him with their money, their secrets, their taxes. My mother was a school counselor at the elementary school. Ironic, right? She spent her days listening to other people's children, helping them through their problems. But at home, she never really heard me. From the outside, we looked perfect. Holiday cards with matching sweaters. Sunday dinners at the local diner. Smiles for the neighbors. Inside our house, I was counting down the days until I turned 18. I wasn't a bad kid. I liked reading novels in my room. I volunteered at the community kitchen on weekends, helping serve meals to people who had nowhere else to go. I had a small group of friends at school. Nothing special, nothing dramatic. But at home, every small mistake became a lecture. Every question became defiance. Every time I defended myself, I was talking back. Still, I never imagined they would actually throw me out. Not until that winter. It started with a laptop. It was a Tuesday afternoon in January. I came home from school, dropped my backpack by the door, and immediately felt the tension in the air. My father was pacing in the living room. His face was red, his hands clenched. My mother sat on the edge of the sofa, arms crossed. That tight expression she got when she'd already made up her mind about something. Liam sat in the armchair, looking pale and shaken. His eyes were red like he'd been crying. "Nora," my father said, his voice shaking. "We need to talk. Right now." My stomach dropped. Nothing good ever started with those words. "What happened?" I asked carefully. He picked up his old work laptop from the coffee table. "Someone accessed my work accounts last night. Confidential files were copied. Client information was compromised. And Liam says you were using this computer." I blinked. "I used it to type an essay for English class. That's all. I didn't touch anything else." Liam sniffled, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. "I told her not to use it, Dad. I told her it had important work stuff on it. She said she didn't care." I stared at him. We hadn't even been in the same room the night before. "I never said that." I replied slowly. "Liam, I barely saw you yesterday. I was in my room all evening. Stop lying." My mother snapped, standing up. Her counselor voice was gone. This was her angry voice, the one she saved for me. "Your brother wouldn't make this up." "Yes, he would." I shot back. "He's done it before." My father slammed the laptop shut. "Enough." Liam showed us proof. "Proof of what?" I demanded. Liam unlocked his phone with trembling hands and turned the screen toward my parents. I couldn't see it from where I stood. "This," my mother whispered, her face going pale. My father's jaw clenched. "Did you write this?" "Write what?" I stepped closer. Liam turned the phone toward me. It was an email draft, unsent, from my father's work account. Attached were several confidential client documents. The message read, "Now everyone will see what kind of man you really are. You're not the hero this town thinks you are." At the bottom, like a signature, was my name. My heart stopped. I didn't write that, I said. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from someone else. I would never. Then how did it get there? My father interrupted. How did your name end up on an email from my account? Someone put it there, I said desperately. Someone is framing me. Liam's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. Nora, please, just tell the truth. I know you're angry at Dad. You've said it before. You think he acts like he's better than everyone. I never said that. I turned to him. Why are you doing this? He looked down at his lap. I didn't want to tell them. I tried to protect you. But when I saw what you were doing, he rolled up his sleeve. A dark purple bruise wrapped around his wrist. Angry and fresh, my mother gasped. Tell them what you did, Liam said softly, his voice breaking. I felt the room tilt. What are you talking about? He held up his wrist for our parents to see. When I tried to stop her from sending the email, she grabbed me. She twisted my arm behind my back and told me if I said anything, she'd make my life hell. The words hung in the air like poison. I never touched you, I whispered, but I knew exactly what he'd done. I had seen him do it before, years ago, when we were younger. He'd pinch his own arm until it turned red, then run to Mom crying that I'd hit him. She always believed him. You hurt yourself, I said. The words came out flat, factual. You did that to your own wrist. His eyes widened, perfect wounded innocence. You think I'd hurt myself just to blame you? Yes, I said, because you've done it before. My mother's face went cold. That is enough, Nora. I don't know what's happened to you, but I'm done listening to these accusations. My father pointed toward the hallway. You need to leave. Go to a friend's house, cool down, and think about what you've done. When you're ready to tell us the truth, we'll talk. I am telling the truth, I said, but my voice cracked. Go, he repeated. I looked at my mother, hoping for something doubt, hesitation, anything. She looked away. I went to my room, hands shaking, and grabbed my school backpack. I stuffed in some clothes, a hoodie, my worn winter boots. My thin jacket hung on the back of my door. January in our town meant snow and ice, but I wasn't thinking clearly. I thought they just wanted me gone for a few hours. I thought I'd come back later, and we'd work it out. I didn't understand what was really happening. When I stepped onto the porch, the cold hit me like a wall. Wind cut through my jacket. Snow was already falling, light and steady. I'll call later. I shouted back through the doorway. No one answered. The door closed behind me. I heard the deadbolt slide into place. I walked toward the bus stop 15 minutes away. The snow started falling harder, thick flakes that stuck to my hair and shoulders. My breath came out in clouds. Halfway there, I pulled out my phone. Battery, 12%. I called my best friend Maya. Voicemail. She was probably working her shift at the grocery store. I tried to other friends. No answer. I sent a group text. Emergency. Can I stay over tonight? Nobody replied. The bus stop came into view, a metal bench under a cracked plastic shelter. The schedule board said the last bus had left 10 minutes ago. Of course. I sat down anyway, hugging my backpack to my chest. My fingers were already numb. I told myself I'd wait an hour, then go back. My father would cool down. We'd talk. But an hour passed, and my phone battery dropped to 4%. I had to go back. I walked home, slipping on icy patches, my jeans soaked through. By the time our house appeared through the snow, my teeth were chattering so hard I bit my tongue. Every window was dark. The porch light was off. I climbed the steps and tried the door, locked. I knocked. Mom, Dad, it's freezing. Please open the door. Nothing. I rang the doorbell, waited, knocked harder. Silence. I pressed my face against the window. The hallway was dark, but I could see the outline of our family photo on the wall. 4 smiling people, 1 locked outside. I called my mother's cell phone. Straight to voicemail. My phone died in my hand. Screen going black. That's when I understood. This wasn't cool off for a few hours. This was real. They had locked me out, and they weren't opening the door. I stood there for a long moment, snow piling on my shoulders, listening to my own shaky breathing. Then I stepped off the porch because I had no other choice. I walked toward downtown because there was nowhere else to go. Every step hurt. The cold was deep in my bones now, making my movements slow and clumsy. My fingers were too stiff to ball into fists. Shops were closing, one by one. Lights flicked off. Metal gates rolled down. The streets emptied. The only place still glowing with warm light was a small café near the train station. Through the windows, I could see wooden tables, hanging lights, a glass case full of pastries. I hesitated at the door. Then I pushed it open. A bell chimed overhead. Heat rushed over me, so sudden it hurt. Behind the counter, a man in his 50s looked up. He had kind, tired eyes and flour on his apron. "Ho," he said, setting down a tray. "You okay, kid?" "I'm fine," I lied. My voice came out rough and small. He frowned, looking at my wet clothes, my red face, my shaking hands. "You don't look fine." A woman stepped out from the back, wiping her hands on a towel. She saw me, and her expression softened immediately. "Come sit," she said gently. "By the heater." "I don't have money," I admitted. "We didn't ask for any," the man said. They guided me to a table near a small radiator. The warmth felt like needles on my frozen skin. The man brought me a mug of hot chocolate. Steam curled up from it like smoke. I wrapped my hands around it, but they shook so badly some spilled. "What's your name?" the woman asked, sitting across from me. "Nora." "I'm Aisha." "That's my husband, Samir." "Do you live nearby?" I nodded. "Do your parents know where you are?" Her voice was soft, not accusing. I stared at the table. They locked the door. Samir stopped wiping down the counter. Aisha's eyes flicked to him, then back to me. "What do you mean?" she asked. "They told me to leave," I said quietly. "When I came back, they wouldn't let me in." Something in my voice must have convinced her I wasn't exaggerating, or she stood, went behind the counter, and picked up her phone. "I'm going to call someone who can help," she said. "Is that okay?" "Please don't call my parents," I said quickly. She nodded. "I won't. But you need somewhere safe to sleep tonight." Samir untied his apron. "There's a youth shelter near the hospital. Good people run it. We know them." "I'm not a runaway," I said. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You don't have to convince us of that," Aisha said gently. "But you do need to be safe and warm." I wanted to argue. I wanted to say I'd be fine, that I'd figure it out. But my body was starting to feel heavy, my thoughts slow and foggy. I nodded. Samir walked me to the shelter. It took 20 minutes, but he filled the silence with light stories about difficult customers and baking disasters. It helped. The building was small, with a faded sign. Harbor House Youth Center, inside. It smelled like laundry detergent and tomato sauce. A woman sat at a desk, typing on a computer. "Evening, Lena," Samir said. "This is Nora. She needs a safe place tonight." Lena smiled at me. "Hi, Nora. You're safe here. I promise." She checked me in, gave me a plastic bag with basic supplies: soap, a toothbrush, clean socks. She showed me to a narrow bed in a room with 3 others. 2 were already asleep. "Just for tonight," Lena said. Tomorrow we'll figure out next steps. I lay down fully dressed, staring at the cracked ceiling. The blanket was thin, but it was warmer than the street. Warmer than my parents' locked door. For the first time in my life, I fell asleep in a place where nobody thought I was the problem. The next morning, Lena sat with me in her small office. She had a notebook, but she spent more time looking at me than writing. "Tell me what happened," she said. "In your own words." I told her everything. The laptop, the fake email, the bruise, the years of being blamed for things I didn't do. She didn't interrupt. She just nodded, like my story made sense. When I finished, she said, "Kids don't end up here because they're bad. They end up here because adults failed them." Those words hit harder than the cold had. "What happens now?" I asked. "We involve a social worker," she said. "We look at options. Temporary housing, maybe with a host family." I thought of Samir and Aisha. Could I stay with them? I asked. Lena smiled. "They've hosted teens before." I was hoping you'd ask. Within 2 weeks, everything changed. There were meetings, phone calls. A social worker named Jordan came to talk to me. She had a calm voice and serious eyes. "Your parents were contacted," Jordan told me during one meeting. "They were given a chance to participate in family mediation." "And?" I asked. "They declined. They said you needed time to think about your actions." I laughed bitterly. Of course they did. Samir and Aisha officially became my host family. I slept on their pull-out couch at first, then later moved into a tiny room when another teen finished the program. Their apartment wasn't big, but it was full of something my old house never had: peace. Nobody yelled. Nobody slammed doors. Nobody called me names. Aisha taught me to cook. Real cooking, not just following recipes. How to judge when bread dough was ready by touch. How to layer flavors in soup. How to make food that made people feel cared for. You have good instincts, she told me one evening as we rolled dough together. You pay attention. That's a gift. Samir let me work at the café on weekends. First washing dishes, then serving customers, then learning to decorate cakes. He paid me, even though I would have done it for free. I transferred to a new school in a different district. Nobody there knew my story. I was just the quiet girl who works at the café. For the first time, I could breathe. Working at the café changed something in me. I learned how to handle rush hours without panicking, how to talk to strangers, how to make someone's bad day a little better with a warm smile and fresh coffee. Aisha showed me how food could be more than fuel. A hot meal could be comfort. A birthday cake could be hope. I started thinking about my future differently. I didn't want to be an accountant like my father or a counselor like my mother. I wanted to build places like Harbor House, places where kids with nowhere to go could find safety. With Lena's help, I applied for a program that supported teens from difficult backgrounds. They gave me a small scholarship for college and paid for counseling sessions. I studied community development and psychology at a city college. I took the bus every morning, worked at the cafe every evening, and did homework at the back table while the espresso machine hissed. Samir called me boss lady in training. For years later, I graduated with honors. Aisha cried louder than anyone in the audience. Samir took about 100 photos. We celebrated at the cafe with a cake he'd made himself, decorated with little fondant books. After graduation, I got a job at a nonprofit that helped homeless teenagers. I started as a caseworker, helping kids fill out paperwork, sitting with them in waiting rooms, listening to stories that sounded too much like my own. Some nights, I came home and cried in the shower because I couldn't save everyone. But every time I wanted to quit, I remembered that first night at Harbor House. One warm bed had changed everything. At 26, I pitched an idea to my boss. What if we combined a café, job training, and counseling all in one place? I said. Like Harbor House, but with better coffee. She laughed, but she liked it. We applied for grants, held fundraisers. Samir and Aisha hosted events at their cafe to raise money 2 years later. We opened Second Table Community Center. It was in a renovated warehouse near the downtown bus station. The front looked like a cozy coffee shop. The back had meeting rooms, a study space, a tiny library, and offices. We hired youth from shelters and group homes. We trained them in food service, paid them real wages, and gave them access to free therapy and tutoring. They called me Director Nora. The name felt strange at first, but I grew into it. Our center became what I had needed at 17. A place where being imperfect didn't mean being disposable. The city started noticing. Local news ran stories about us. Reporters interviewed teens who turned their lives around. Photographers captured kids learning latte art, laughing over textbooks, finding hope in second chances. One afternoon, an email popped into my inbox. Subject, City Resilience Awards, keynote speaker invitation. My hands froze over the keyboard. The email explained that every year, the city held an event honoring people and projects that strengthened the community. This year, they wanted me to give the keynote speech. My name would be on the program, on the big screen. My words would open the entire night. I scrolled down to the list of other honorees. My breath caught. Small Business Growth Award, Sterling Financial Consulting. Owner, Liam Sterling, my brother. I hadn't seen him in almost 10 years. I stared at the screen. Heart pounding. I showed the email to Aisha and Samir that night. You don't have to go, Samir said immediately. But what do you want to do? Aisha asked. I thought about all the kids at Second Table. Kids who'd been blamed, abandoned, told they were too much trouble. I want to tell the truth, I said. Not to hurt them, to free myself. Aisha squeezed my hand. Then we'll be right there with you. The night of the awards. I wore a simple black suit and my favorite boots. Nothing flashy, just strong. The venue was the old Civic Theater. The same one my school used for plays when I was a teenager. Backstage, staff rushed around with clipboards and headsets. Someone clipped a small microphone to my collar. 5 minutes, a voice called. I peeked past the curtain. The theater was packed. City officials in suits, business owners, families dressed in their best. In the middle section, I saw them. My father, older now, hair thin and gray. My mother, smaller somehow, like worry had shrunk her. In between them, a man in his late 20s with perfect hair and a perfect suit, Liam. They were laughing with the couple next to them, completely unaware that the keynote speaker was the girl they'd left in the snow. The host walked onto the stage. The lights dimmed. Music faded. Tonight, he began. We celebrate people who turned personal hardship into community hope. He smiled toward the wings. To open our evening, please welcome the director of Second Table Community Center, Nora. Raman, the last name I'd legally taken at 21. Samir and Aisha's name. Applause filled the room. A few teens from Second Table whistled and cheered. I stepped into the light. The stage felt smaller up close. The audience felt massive. I found Aisha and Samir in the front row, hands clasped together. Behind them, my old family froze. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's face went blank. Liam stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. I walked to the podium, took a breath, and smiled. Good evening, I began. My name is Nora, and 10 years ago, I spent a winter night on a freezing bus stop bench because I had nowhere else to go. The room went silent. I wasn't on drugs. I wasn't in a gang. I hadn't committed a crime. I was just a 17-year-old girl who'd lost her home without losing her address. People shifted in their seats. I grew up in this town. I continued. From the outside, my family looked perfect. Nice house, good jobs, holiday cards. On the inside, there was a story nobody knew. I paused, letting the words settle. One winter night, after a family argument, I left the house expecting to come back in a few hours. When I returned, the door was locked. My calls went unanswered. The message was clear: you don't belong here anymore. In the audience, my mother's shoulders began to shake. My father sat rigid, jaw clenched. I walked through the snow for hours, I said. My phone died. I had nowhere to go. Eventually, I found a small café that was still open. Two strangers gave me hot chocolate, listened to my story, and walked me to a youth shelter. I gestured towards Samir and Aisha. Those strangers became my family. They gave me a couch, then a room, then a home. They taught me how to bake bread and how to trust people again. The audience murmured, some looking towards Samir and Aisha, who sat with tears in their eyes. Tonight, we're here to celebrate resilience, I said. But resilience doesn't appear out of nowhere. It grows when someone offers you a second chance. I saw Liam drop his head into his hands. Today, at second table, we serve teenagers who've heard the same message I did. You're the problem. You don't belong. We tell them something different. We tell them, you are not the worst thing someone said about you. You are not the lies other people told. I looked directly at the row where my family sat. I rebuilt my life without the people who were supposed to protect me. I have forgiven them because holding on to anger was hurting me more than them. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending the harm never happened. My voice was steady, strong. If you're a parent, a teacher, a neighbor when a young person makes a mistake, or is accused of one, I ask you, do you lock the door? Or do you ask what pain might have led them to that moment? Silence blanketed the room. You don't have to be a hero to change someone's life, I finished. You just have to be the person who doesn't turn away. Thank you. The audience erupted. People stood, clapping. Teens from second table cheered and whistled. I stepped back from the podium, heart hammering. The host shook my hand. That was incredible. He whispered Dot after the ceremony. Everyone moved to the lobby for refreshments and networking. I tried to find a quiet corner, but people kept stopping me. That was so powerful. You made me cry. Thank you for sharing. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw 3 figures moving through the crowd toward me. Aisha touched my arm. Do you want us to stay close? Please, I said. My mother reached me first. Her eyes were red, mascara smudged down her cheeks. Nora, she breathed. You look so different. I am different, I said calmly. My father stood beside her, face pale. Liam hung back, hands shoved deep in his pockets. We didn't know, my father started. His voice cracked. We had no idea you'd become. Stop, I said quietly. You knew I was outside that night. You knew it was winter. You knew you had the only key. He closed his mouth. You were just a child, my mother whispered. We were under so much pressure. Your father's job was at risk. Liam was struggling in school. And when that situation with the laptop happened, I didn't touch the laptop. I interrupted. I didn't write that email. I didn't hurt him. Liam flinched like I'd slapped him. I know, he said hoarsely. We all turned to stare at him. I know you didn't do it, he repeated, louder this time. I made it up. My mother's face went white. What? I was failing chemistry, Liam said, words tumbling out. I panicked and messed up some files on Dad's computer trying to delete my grade reports from his email. When he noticed, I needed someone to blame. So I created that draft email, put your name on it, and gave myself that bruise. His voice broke. I thought they'd just yell at you, ground you for a week. I didn't think they'd actually kick you out. And when they locked the door, I wanted to say something, but I was scared. Then days passed, then weeks, then years, and it felt impossible to tell the truth. The confession hung in the air. People nearby pretended not to listen, but I could feel their attention. You had 10 years, I said. I'm 28 now. The café that saved me is busier than ever. Second Table has expanded to 2 locations. We've helped over 300 teens find jobs, housing, and hope. Sometimes, when I'm closing up at night, I stand at the window and watch teenagers laugh around. Tables covered in notebooks and coffee cups. I think about that scared 17-year-old girl on the bus stop. Bench, cold, alone, convinced she'd ruined everything even though she'd done nothing wrong. I wish I could go back and tell her, you're going to be okay. Better than okay. If you're reading this and you're in your own storm right now, locked out, pushed away, blamed for things you didn't do, please hear this. You are not disposable. You're allowed to set boundaries. Even with family, you're allowed to walk toward people who choose you, who show up, who offer warmth instead of cold shoulders. Forgiveness and distance can exist together. You can wish someone well and still keep them far from your life. Most importantly, your future is not controlled by the people who gave up on you. That night in the snow felt like the end of everything, but it was actually the beginning of a life I never could have imagined, one where I help other kids step out of their own storms and into the warmth. My parents' numbers are still in my phone. I haven't deleted them. Maybe one day I'll call. Maybe I won't. Either way, I'm not that scared, freezing girl anymore. I'm the woman who walked onto a stage, told her truth, and walked back into a life she built herself. And that's enough. If this story touched you, remember, you deserve warmth. You deserve safety. You deserve people who choose you. And if nobody has told you that today, I'm telling you now. Thank you for listening to my story. If it helped you even a little, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone. I'll see you in the next story.